Phil, welcome to my home.
Thanks, John. Nice to be here. Nice to be here. Lovely home it is too.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. I haven't given you a guided tour yet, but welcome to the Crack On podcast, mate. Thanks for agreeing to come.
No, pleasure to be here, and thanks for asking me. Looking forward to it.
I know you're a busy man, mate, right? I know you're a busy man, so we'll get into all that.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in the world of rugby and family and etc. But you're never bored. That's a key thing for me.
Yeah,
got to keep going.
Yeah, you got to keep going, right? So as we start with the podcast, generally is as far back as you can. Where does Phil come from? Was he go far as back as where does Phil come from?
Yeah, Seven Sisters. It's a village in the Davies Valley. Sometimes I get it wrong and say the Neath Valley, but no, it's the Davies Valley. So yeah, that's where I was born and bred, and lived till I was about 18, and then left in the police force, and then got married quite young, and then moved to Trimsara and moved to Llanelli. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the start of it. That's where I started playing rugby, and lots of good influences. Mentors. I didn't realise what they were at the time. They were just big blokes, used to clip me on the ear if I did something wrong in the club. But they were really, they were great. And I went back there about 6 weeks ago before Christmas, because they were presenting caps to the guys who'd played over 500 games for the club, or 400 games, sorry. Yeah. And it was brilliant. It was really nostalgic, and a lot of the guys who were getting the caps were the ones who were really instrumental in my early life, if you like, whether it's playing football, swimming, or ultimately rugby, and it was sad in a way to see him growing old, if you like, but it was wonderful just to see the contribution he'd made to the village and the club in particular, So yeah, it was a great night, seeing old friends and people I'd known all my life, really. So it was quite nostalgic and emotional and inspiration. All those words came to mind because they inspired me, not just at the start, but throughout my career. And if I did well, they'd tell me, but also if I did badly, they'd tell me as well. So they were never short of an opinion when I was playing or coaching. So, but that's really, humbling in a way, and it's kept my roots front and centre in everything I've done, really,
Yeah, and you were nearly there with the 400.
Oh, no, not for Seven Sisters. No.
Oh, not for Seven Sisters. Clearly,
maybe.
Clearly,
not for Seven Sisters. Yeah, no. I played in the youth. Yeah. Played in school and played at youth rugby, but then I was lucky I ended up playing with Llanelli before I was 18. But back and forward with 7 in the first team. I think I only played maybe 6 games for the first team.
I got called up, did you?
And then I went and ended up going to Llanelli then, yeah.
I bet. So out of those then, go back to that, because that's a great... I thought you were talking about Llanelli then.
No, sorry, no.
No, it's good. Give me what meant... you said about mentors. What was it about them that you remembered it was fun? What was it about them?
It's just all advice, really, or opinions. You should be passing this particular way, or you should be tackling that. It's just advice about the game, really, and how I can improve and stop eating pasties and pies and drinking. Well, not so much drinking, but I was partial to a pie when I was a bit younger. But anyway, I still am now, actually. But
favourite type, I was going to ask then.
Yeah, well, Clark's pies, isn't it? The best, but
the best Cardiff ones. Really.
Exactly. Yeah. So I used to pick a Clark's pie up on the way home. I used to go to Besma Road with my dad when I was younger, and because he was involved in fruit and veg. He's retired now, but he was for about 60 years. And he used to do buying and selling for a company in Neath and Swansea. We used to go to Besma Road, and we used to end up going past Clark's Pies in the morning. So we'd up about 4 o'clock, 4:30, and then 9:30, 10 o'clock, a Clark's Pie was great on the way home. So no, stuff like that. It was great, and lots of encouragement and things, and yeah, they would always. It was never, you can't do this, you can't do that. It was always about, try and get better all the time, try and improve, and I think that sort of type of approach sort of filtered, spilled over into my coaching career or my playing career. Always wanted to help younger players and give young people opportunities to grow and develop and try and encourage them to to see what the art of the possible is, as one of my old friends from Leeds used to keep telling me, not think, you'll never do this, you'll never do that. It's just what's possible, and that sort of can do, half glass full, all that sort of stuff. And that, I took that a lot. My granddad was the same, when I told him I wanted to play for Wales when I was about 15, he said, well, go on then.
Yeah.
Rather than to be so stupid.
What if that answer, and if that answer had been no, or you couldn't be, what would that have done, right? And that's
exactly. And that's how I think language, when you're dealing with young people, how important language is when you speak to them. And and it's been great. And some of the younger boys that I've coached over the years, you get huge satisfaction in seeing them doing well, or they're ringing you, they still call you, and what do you think, blah blah blah. So it's great. It's how you try and make a difference, I suppose. And in my field, it's been trying to make a difference in sport, which I've been really lucky at having such a long period of time to be able to do that and keep doing it.
Yeah, amen to that. You mentioned your granddad and your dad within the fruit and veg. Do you ever get involved in that? And where do they sit with regards to? You said you've got a few things to, their mentality. How impactful were they?
Yeah, I think, my grandfather was a miner, and a real hard worker. He had a big hand, I know that much. Sometimes when I wasn't quite the, I follow him in a way. I got the same type of years as him, but fortunately I got the same hairstyle as my father.
Right.
So that's it. But both of them really, my granddad maybe more so my dad, but was always positive and really that mentorship role from that nothing's impossible type of thing. A lot of people say that, but he was really good like that. Everything I used to say to him, and if he'd always say, have a go at it. Sometimes you might know, I might fail or I might fall over, whatever. He didn't care about that. He just wanted me to have a crack and learn things, And with my dad, he was similar, but with a work ethic. He was like relentless in the way he worked to try to help my sister, my brother. I was very lucky when we grew up. We didn't want for too much. We weren't, we had, if I wanted a pair of rugby boots, I was able to, to have a good pair of rugby boots. So same with my brother and sister. So him and my mum were very, supportive in that respect, and they did it through hard work. And I think I learned, how important work ethic is, how important enthusiasm is, and a mentality to try and keep trying, basically. And that was what was, drummed into me, not just at home, but again in the village as well. And at school, I had some brilliant school teachers in primary school, both Joneses really, both Malcolm Joneses, and one in Seven Sisters in a primary school, and another one in Llangatog when I played when I went to school there. So yeah, same type of people.
What influence did they have then? Because we all remember a good teacher, good coach. What influence did they have on you as a young lad? Good guiding,
principles. Again, good values. Try and work as hard as you can, be as honest as you can. Be loyal. Loyalty is a big thing. Respect is a big thing. And again, those things came from the teachers, my granddad and my grandfather and my dad and my mum, really, and the family thing, So, yeah, it was. I'm not saying I was perfect all the time, because I knew I wasn't. I could be a pain in the backside at times as you grow up. Sometimes you think you're in a bit of an invincible mode, and then something happens to make you realise you're not. So, and you take a few wrong turnings, don't you? But for me, it was always trying to do better the next time, even when I knew I'd buggered up and been a bit stupid, like we all do when we're growing up. I think it was trying to be better next time, and that's a key thing. I think a lot of people, perhaps who know me, know I've got a big heart, but I could have been a bit of a clown now and again. So, but try to be better next time.
But that's what you said. A part of life is taking the wrong turning, right? And learning from them. And how good were you back in the day at learning from your mistakes? You say about being better every day, but how good do you think you were back then?
I was. As I got older, I got better. Put it that way. As I got older, I got better, and at the time, I didn't think, because I was in a rush. At times you are when you're younger, and you're in a rush to get from A to B to C. You want to wake up one morning, you want to be a multi-millionaire, don't you, type of thing, or you want to have 50 caps for Wales under your belt, or whatever it might be. want to be driving a Rolls Royce type of thing. Well, it doesn't work like that, as we know. It's not in a straight line. It goes in all different directions, and I think as I got older, I got a lot better, I think. And same, I talk about that. My wife a lot. We talk a lot. Like, we got married when we were 21, 22. I was 20. How old was I? Yeah, just 21 and a half, if you like, and she was 20 and a half.
Right.
So we've been, married now nearly 37 years, and that has not been straightforward. As we all know, if you're married, it's not easy. And, she's a saint, really. And my mother-in-law, Jonathan's mum, the two of them are my heroes in many ways, because they put up with me for nearly 40 years now. So you talk and you learn, and you compromise, and you realise, other people's needs as well as your own. So it's all that type of stuff, John, really, is what I mean by trying to be better the next day. I'm not saying I always achieved that, by the way, but that was always the intention. And like I say, when you speak to a lot of people, I suppose, who know me, they'll tell you some of the things I just said, but they'll hopefully say I've got a big heart, and I always want to try and help people,
It's good. Was there one moment back then, and we're going to move on in a sec though, but was there only one moment then you thought that the biggest learning back then, that you looked at yourself and thought, this isn't right?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, that is, actually. Yeah, there was the minor strike. I was only 18 then, and I went into the police force. David East came to see me and Sam Sisters and said, look, you sort of put a rugby team together, the South Wales Police. Right. He's an amazing man, that fella. He was another guy who, we could talk to a lot of boys who were in the police, right? He was a people mention the word legend, but he was an amazing fella for all of us, as a mentor, from a police point of view, trying to encourage us to get a good career. And boys like Hugh Williams-Jones, we joined roughly the same time, and Hugh ended up, with nearly 30-year career in the police force. Yeah, Steve Sutton was the same. There was a lot of boys who had wonderful careers. Phil Noble was there at the time. So, and he had a lot to do with that, and it was great. And anyway, I went into the police force. It was an ambition of mine, and I think if you go in, what I learned about it in the end when I came out after a couple of years, went back to play for Llanelli, I think you have to have that focus. I suppose it's similar if you go into the military, maybe, and the police force. I have such respect for the police, and for all the public services and the armed forces and things, and I had a lot to do with them over my years as a coach. But answering that question directly, I think it was a minor strike, and seeing maybe how lucky I'd been up until then throughout my schooling, my village, and everything was, I didn't want for too much, but it was always on, I worked hard myself as a kid, but maybe not as much as other people did to help me get what I was getting at that time. And when I was seeing people, like my uncle, my granddad were miners, all the boys I was playing rugby with were miners, and just seeing the hardships and the strifes that they went through, I thought, do you know what, man, you better wise up here, because you're pretty lucky. And it made me think about things a lot differently than I had done up until that time. I was still a bit of a clown as I moved on, mate, but it really started to make me think about, about life and the situations you find yourself in. And yeah, that was a, I hadn't thought of it like that before, actually, John, but yeah, that's a good question. But that was the first big learning curve,
Great.
For sure.
And did that, I suppose, on that, we're going to go back there where the Scarlets and Llanelli started, but did that have an impact then on how serious you took that, and how thankful you were that you were in that position? Was there a time where, did that have an impact on your rugby career, do you feel?
Yeah, it did. I always had an ambition to play rugby for Wales. When I was about 14, I used to watch the great teams doing it. JPR, God bless him. Phil Bennett, God bless him. And, when you see Barry John and Derek Cornell, Mervyn, all those heroes, really, they inspired us all to play. Myself, Jonathan, Yaya, and all of those. That was the era we grew up watching, Of
course.
And I always wanted to do that. And I think that minor thing made me realise a couple of things. One, how lucky I was, But two, I'd had a taste of playing with Llanelli before then. And you used to drive through the gates of Stradley Park and go upstairs and go to the museum and see. I get goosebumps thinking about it now, seeing the pictures and the history really of the town and what it meant to everyone. And I think, wow, I wanted to be a bigger part of that. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was going to do, man. I went home and told my mother and father I was leaving the police force after watching Llanelli play Australia in the police, in the Nick in Talbot, and thinking, do you know what, I got to go back there and play rugby. And my father and mother were distraught, of course, because the police force was a wonderful career with pension and everything, stability, the whole thing, and serving the community and all that business. But I just had a crazy idea and it was an amateur game, and I played it all my life as an amateur. Yeah. I was lucky to work for some brilliant people who looked after me in my job, So
you were working and playing. When you went and worked to play for Scarlets, you were working as well still?
Yeah, I went back and my father said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll come and drive the van with you in Neath and deliver spuds. So that was good weight training, because I was delivering a ton of spuds 3 or 4 times a day, which is 40 bags of potatoes. So I'd have two either shoulder, whatever, walking into places. So that was great. Yeah, it was great training, great weight training, if you like. But manual type of stuff, And I used to agree. It was a guy there, Dorian Thomas. We used to work together. So I'm not sure how often we were within the speed limit, but when we were driving up the play, we used to go around Neath, Resolve and Gleneath, all up the valleys. It was brilliant. Yeah, but then, I started thinking, right, well, hang on a minute now, I need a bit more of a career. I wasn't going to have a career in buying and selling fruit and veg. It was my dad's job. So I went to work for a company in Swansea, CEMD. They were they were a Ford dealership, one of the biggest in South Wales, Southwest, still are to this day. Yeah. And I had 2 guys there, Richard Baker and Graham Day, who were amazing. They just looked after me. I trained, so I understood my job. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it would be advantageous if you had a face like mine was on telly playing for Wales one week and then walking in a company the following week. So there was like an introduction thing there. But I always wanted to learn about, what I was doing really, what I was selling, what I was involved in, not to look like a Charlie, if you like. So I was always keen to learn, and that I learned a lot about sales, marketing, budgets, blah blah, that sort of stuff. And I worked for him for about 7 or 8 years. Bro. And he was very thankful for that, So it was getting back. I wanted to get back to Llanelli, but after a while, then I realised, well, hang on, I got a family here, I need a career. So that's how that sort of thinking started, But it was a love of rugby that I went out to the police for.
Yeah. I bet your parents were. Do you remember that moment where you went in and had a chat with them?
I remember the moment when I tried to tell David East. Let me tell you, he was less than pleased.
I
went to see him in headquarters in Bridgend. I said, sir, I want to go back. And the key thing was he was a Llanelli fan.
Oh, right.
Which, he said, they played on the weekend, Cardiff, right? You can leave on Friday, he said, you can play against Cardiff, which I did. Then they had a great team. Terry Holmes was playing. And,
I bet it was.
Oh, what a player he was. Anyway, Gareth Davies, Bob Norstein, all that great, Kevin Edwards, Eidman, all those guys, brilliant players. And, I went back and played and I kicked the winning goal from the halfway line.
Did you? Yeah, fantastic.
We beat them 16-15.
Nice.
So it was a crazy time. But when I went back, I think it was before Christmas, but then the following year, then I'd played for Wales. I had my first cap for Wales, and then I had my first game for the Barbarians as well in Italy. So I was like a fairy tale. And then we played in a cup final for Llanelli against Cardiff on 3 sort of consecutive.
Was that the Challenge Cup, was it?
Yeah, the Schweppes Cup. It was brilliant. They had an unbelievable team. So it was my first game back for Llanelli was Cardiff at Stradley, and then my last club game of that season was Cardiff in a cup final.
Yeah.
At the Arms
Park. What a start! What a start! Right?
Yeah. Well, again then, but. What happened to me then? You get into that war, you're in that invincible mode there again. Look at it, all your dreams are coming true within like a month. And then you think, this is forever. Yeah. And then Wade Dooley comes along and whacks you in and breaks your cheekbone. You think, hang on, there's another sort of subliminal moment where you've got to think, well, hang on. Mm-hmm. Let's have another recap type of thing, So there's always, sort of turns in the road you've got to deal with, isn't there, really?
And what was that like? I know, talking about that punch, you said that it had an impact on, because the young'uns nowadays, like you said earlier on, like people expect it to happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, when you have that first few months, you accelerate and you get everything you want, but then you get punched in the face, right? Do you have many moments like that through your career? And what was that moment like?
Yeah, it was painful, let me tell you.
I
Right?
bet it was.
I'll never... There's a guy, right, I think he's passed away now, Ron Ayres his name was, right, and he was the masseur. Tudor Jones was the physio of the Welsh team when we played. He was a Cardiff guy. And he used to... I can't remember. He had a pub in Lisvane.
Right.
We used to call park there, where we used to go up to Newport when we were playing with Llanelli. But anyway, he was a great guy too. Yeah. And Ron Ayres he was a rubber before the games, so he used to be sweating conkers rubbing us all, but these legs aren't that small. So he would be going away, Ron. So Ron took me to the hospital after because I was only on the pitch for 1 minute something, 2 minutes, whatever it was.
But it just kicked off, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So one half of my kit was muddy because it fell on the floor. The other half was pristine. Yeah. So Ron was charged to go to the hospital to the infirmary in Cardiff. Mm. So fair play, they were brilliant, the nurses, whatever. I'll never forget, I walked past this room with my boots on, everything on, right, and just got me the ambulance straight there. And I walked past the mess room, if you like, or the canteen over there, all these Heineken cans of beer, all that. So anyway, I went and did the exercise and they said, you got 3 fractures around the orbital of your eye, blah, 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 blah. That's why your eye's here, because when you went to blow your nose with the blood, it just blew up like a balloon when you get cracks in those areas. So I thought, do I need an operation? No, which was a bit of a relief in some ways. I wasn't far short of it, but thankfully I didn't need one. But then Ron and I went back in the canteen bit and watched the game with a few cans. I was still in my kit. Ron was still in his kit, whatever. So yeah, we ended up going back. So it was a half cut, getting back to the Arms Park, to the change rooms, and then getting changed, and then going to the dinner. And that was just a bit, it was a bit of an awkward situation because it was a bad game that. It's been on that slam program that the BBC have just done, and it was a funny old week. It was when I look back, it was grey. Every day was a grey, sort of drizzly type of day, days preparation. There was a lot in the press. England, Wales, England were going to come and beat. We hadn't lost to England for 20 odd years. Blah blah blah. We were having a bit of an indifferent season because we were rebuilding a team.
Yeah, that sort of time was it all coming back together, wasn't it?
And Derek and Tony Gray were doing a brilliant job.
Yeah.
And I'd played when I got in '85. I'd played in the '86 championship. Played throughout. The first couple of games of '87, and ended this bang. And it was just all about regenerating. We were getting better and better, and and I went to the World Cup. I didn't play particularly well in hindsight. Look back, I went on a tour to Australia as well with an injury, and I think when I look back, that because I think I only missed one game. That I was back in again, and maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I was a bit, I don't know, maybe I came back a bit early, whatever, but I felt fit and I was young, I wanted to play for Wales. Of
course.
So you crack on, but when you look back over time, you think, there was maybe, although I was maybe physically fit, whether I ended up having a bit of psychological scarring maybe from the experience, I don't know. Well, I do know, I suppose. Yeah, I think I did in hindsight, but at the time I didn't care. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get back in, and people were too happy, only too happy to pick me again. So I thought, right, well, I'm getting back in there. But my form didn't quite get back for, the World Cup was an amazing experience. It was brilliant, and the boys, we had a great time. It was awesome.
Well, you had Jiffy, you had great.
And Paul and Rich Moriarty. Glenn was there, Glenn Webb, it was brilliant seeing him those 5. He's brilliant, Webby, what a player.
Yeah.
And Ringo as well, what a player.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best rugby brains I've ever been involved with or discussed rugby about, so I was a great bunch of blokes. And then I went back, I played for the club, played with Llanelli that year, played really well, but I didn't go to New Zealand in '88. I didn't get picked for that. I wasn't playing well enough anyway.
Right.
And I started about a year later. the summer of '88 when I didn't get picked, I sat down again. That was another big moment for me to go on. I'm glad I missed that tour in some ways because it was a tough old tour. That was still arguably one of the best rugby teams I've ever seen or played against. The 87, 88, 89 All Blacks. They were unbelievable.
So what made them, I suppose, coming back, because I've got a couple of questions with it, leadership being one, because we spoke about sort of you as a leader and the team. Who were the most instrumental people in that team at that time, you know, especially like going on a tour or playing against New Zealand? In the Welsh team, who were the leaders?
Yeah, I was lucky, man. My first my first two caps, actually, England and Fiji was in the autumn, because we didn't play as many games in those days, as you know. Somebody worked it out for me the other day. If I'd have been playing now, I'd have had about 97 caps or something like that. Yeah. So I thought, oh, well, that's all right.
I'll take that.
But it wasn't the case then.
Yeah.
But no, it was Terry Holmesy was, he was brilliant. I'll never forget my first cap he gave me his England, his Welsh shirt, so I could keep mine and swap his for an England shirt.
So you kept it?
Yeah, which is brilliant. I did that a few times myself over my career with a few boys, Gareth Llewellyn, I think when he had his first cap, I gave him my shirt so he could keep his, and those things, like I said earlier, about mentors or people, making, or giving good gestures, whatever. Yeah, he was brilliant, Holmes. He was a leader, because I'd played against him a lot at club level as a kid. John Scott, although he didn't play for Wales, I took a lot out of, I think I was a real pain in the backside for him when we played against each other. I used to clip me around the Euro because I was 18 and he was an established player. England international, a brilliant player, really. Yeah. A huge respect for him in the beginning of my career. So, but Terry was good, Bob Norster was good, John Perkins, I roomed with Perky for 6 or 7 caps, and he used to terrorise me.
Yeah.
But he was a great leader. Where Rob Ackerman was involved in the squad.
What sort of, going back to Holmesy then, because he's a Cardiff legend in his own right, and what sort of traits would you class? Like, you look back now, and what sort of traits as a leader did he show, and why was he such a mentor?
Just tough, mate.
Tough.
Tough. Like, no nonsense. We wouldn't, like, I can use sometimes 10 words when I can use one, but that's just, I think that's my enthusiasm gets better than me on occasions. But yeah, those two things. And he was a great player. He could pass, kick, he could do it all, really.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a no nonsense attitude, keep it as simple as possible, and he was tough, mate. He was just, him and Bish were, Di Bish was another one. He was an incredible player. He was, he was, we had Rob Jones, I know another one was a great player. Yeah,
arguably three of the best nines in that era, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were, and arguably any era.
I agree.
Obviously you got Gareth, who's the icon of it all, but then you got Mikey Phillips, you got Dwayne Peel, we got Reece, we got so many, but those three guys, for lots of, like Rob could pass the ball through a flipping hula hoop from 40, 50 metres. Well, maybe even a smaller one than that, actually. But anyway, he was so accurate with his pass, and he gave Jonathan so much time and space. And Bish was so combative around the breakdown, around the ruck area, and he could kick goals and confident. Wow. Yeah. But what a blow! Just brilliant players, all of them, really. But Holmesy for me was, in the beginning of my career, was just a warrior for those, a legend for those points I made, really.
Yeah, and moving then, so you went from playing straight into coaching. But near enough that stepping stone between. What took you up to Leeds? What was the transition like between playing and coaching? What was the biggest learning between going from one to the other?
Yeah. It was interesting. I think my last game at Llanelli was something 19th of May or whatever, 96.
96, yeah. And
then I took up the contract in Leeds, 1st of June.
Straight up?
I gave my missus about 3 weeks' notice. We're moving from West Wales to Yorkshire. Yeah. So people go, what are you going to Leeds for? Why are you going to play rugby league? I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to coach rugby union. And it was, I remember the first part of the question, why I went there, was I remember talking to Thumper, right, Alan Phillips, about coaching the club who just finished playing for. And I was talking to Gareth Jenkins, right, who again was a huge mentor of mine in my playing career and has been all my life, really, in my rugby life, he's my father in rugby, if you like, that sort of thing. Like,
because I want to, can we stay there for 2 seconds before we go into Leeds then? Gareth Jenkins.
Yeah.
You said in one of your, in the video I watched about him being the enthusiastic leader. He obviously was your coach for a long period of time. Yeah. What was it? Because everyone looks at him, obviously his international career when he was coach for, and whatever happened with the Fiji, and but as a leader for you and a person in your life, when you say that he was like a father figure within rugby, what influence did he have?
He was a character, we knew how to enjoy himself, and Buchanan, and we had some great fun, right? We had some great fun, but I was his captain for 6 years.
Of course.
So he was hard, he was difficult, very demanding on everyone.
Yeah. But what, standards wise?
Standards wise, because he was like, for me, he had the Welsh coaching job at the wrong time. Him and Mike could have potentially flipped round. They both deserved to coach Wales.
Yeah.
But Gareth, during in the early days and throughout his Llanelli career, he was an innovator. Like, we were one of the first teams to have a strength and conditioning coach. At the time, a full strength and conditioning coach, full-time strength and conditioning coach. Tom Hudson had done it in Llanelli previously, so he'd been the sort of pioneer through Carwyn James of that type of approach. And Gareth got Pete Herbert in, was amazing. He terrorised me. I used to hate him, but I loved him as well. Because when I did what he told me, I was in the best form, best condition, best form ever type of thing. When I dropped off, I was never the same type of thing.
What, from listening?
From listening to Pete, he was brilliant. And that was down to Gareth's influence with Alan Lewis, who was there at the time.
Yeah.
With him, they were a great coaching duo, Lou and Gareth. And he brought in a statistics guy, Mark, who used to come in with Tony Walters, used to do the filming and stuff. So we started looking at analysis. So he was a real innovator and attention to detail, as well as a motivator. Like, he could get me in a play for a minute now. I could run out on the pitch well, but I wouldn't be able to do much more than that nowadays. But that's how he just gets people, the way he speaks about emotion, and what he was always good at was connecting it to Llanelli, to the town,
right. What
the town meant to him, and then again, I get emotional thinking about it. How it used to, how then we had a responsibility, and how it connected us all to the Llanelli, to the Scarlets, and what the jersey meant, and the history and the town, and it was quite it was a working man's town when it was the steelworks and the coal mines around in Canaida and Trimsara and all that stuff. So yeah, he was good. He was really good like that, but his attention to detail sometimes, and his innovation to coaching, I think people didn't realise, I think. And because Llanelli's, we've been the closest Welsh team to win the Heineken Cup. I know Cardiff Cardiff got to a final, to be fair.
Yeah.
But, we got to 3 semis and we're really close. And I was coached for 1, but he was coached for 2, and they won so many things with him. He's one of the most decorated coaches in the world, if you looked at his record of winning.
Oh, absolutely. Can I ask, where did that take you then?
Took, in what respect? To Leeds, you mean?
No. I mean, as in, where did that take you then? When you got to you went.
Yeah, I just remembering. I'm quite an emotional bloke myself. I'm passionate, and when I think when I coached, I could get people connected. And excited. We made the Leeds players. No, we made them, but we encouraged them to realise that nobody used to work harder than us, because we used to run up hills and sometimes do some crazy things like 50-100s, who certain players were less than happy about at the time. Yeah. But they realised what it did for the group. It brought the group together. It created a bond and a resilience that we won games we shouldn't have perhaps won at times, and Llanelli was a bit like that with Gareth.
Yeah.
We were just, we'd always be in the fight, if you like. We'd always be able to match teams physically. Not always, by the way. I wouldn't say every single time, but I'd say 85% of the time we were always up for the battle. But we had that bit of flair and skill about us, whether it was Jonathan, whether it was Ian on the wing scoring tries, or Martin Gravella, where he used to come into the line, and Morgan Stoddard similar. Mark Jones, Dav James, those type of back players, Stephen Jones, Regan King. I'm talking about playing and coaching.
Yeah, of course.
But just brilliant players. But you know, I learned a lot out of him in terms of you can be outskilled, but you can't be outwilled, out enthused. That was one of his big messages, and that's how he sort of, and I took a lot out of that, you know, over the years. You look at people like Graham Henry. I learned a lot about analysis from him.
I was going to say, your eye for detail. You got an eye for detail.
Yeah.
Have you learned that over time, or have you always been someone that's been a detail man?
Yeah, no, I have, and it's interesting, John, because there were times when in my coaching where I've gone too down the leadership route and less down the coaching route, and vice versa as well. So when you're down a coaching route, it's more detail. You need that detail, and then sometimes when it's leadership, it's more about creating a vision, you know, and images and pictures that can really bring our vision to life, to take people on and to win the hearts and minds of people, really, because people won't do anything for you unless they know how much you care about them, and then you're in a winning spot. Then if they know you care about them, and you take interest in them and their families and that sort of stuff, you know, they'll go a million miles for you, and that's what Gareth used to do for us. And for me, he always used to tell me, you're not going to play Boxing Day this year against London Welsh. So when I was captain, I'd always play. It's a nightmare. Yeah. We go on tour to California, we played 6 games, you only play 1 game, I played them all. Right. And it was all that crazy stuff used to come out. Yeah. He came one day, I spoke to physio, the doctor, I was in bed, right? I couldn't move, I had the flu, terrible. I was only playing, it was not only, but it wasn't a significant cup match or a defining league game or whatever, right? I was in bed. Knocks the door. Gets me out of bed. More fool me, by the way. Gets me out of bed, jumps in his car, and I'm off and I'm playing. I played all right, actually. But I didn't think about it, maybe. But anyway.
But at the moments, that what I love about that one word you said was connected.
Yeah.
How important connection is to building a really strong team, right?
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah, I did. Where I work now, in World Rugby, they all sort of, we have a bit of banter about it, but I talk about Everest a lot, right, which means aspiration. And then I talk a lot about the 3 C's because I'm an ex-second row. I don't like too many things, but I got to communicate, connect, collaborate. You know, like if you can't get the first 2, you're not going to get the third one. You know, you've got to communicate and connect with people.
In what way? Give me an example.
And just understand them. You know, like if you're coaching West Wales, it's different to coaching in East Wales, would you believe? Right? It's different. Right? It's different. There's different psyches, and you've got to understand that. And when people realise you perhaps do, they respect the fact that you take time to understand. Yeah. Same in Namibia. You go to Namibia and you think, right, okay, you're going to coach rugby, but unless you know the culture and the mindset of the people and respect that and try and take time to understand that, people then respect that as well, and then they realise, well, he's not trying to tell us what we haven't got. He's trying to work with what we have got and bring the best out of us in that way. And that's the biggest thing I've learned through all my coaching journey and playing journey is I think I've maybe played and coached in over 30 odd countries over time, and you learn about people, and you got to have respect for how they see the world. And sometimes I don't do, you know, even in work now, I'm dealing sometimes with administrators, scientists, medical people, and it's more of a strategic view of the world than perhaps a practical view of the world. So it's how people are receiving, you know, the why, the what, and the how, the messages you're trying to get across. And even now, I'm battling with that type of thing in some periods of my role because it's different. When I talk to coaches and players, we're on the same page immediately. Yeah. But in this role, it's learning to be using the experience I got, but to be more of an effective communicator, to get that experience across and ideas across, so they can potentially make a difference. So I'm in a huge learning curve in that regard, because there's some amazing people in this organisation, and the research and stuff they do is incredible. So it's trying to learn about how you take that research and how then you can apply it in practice to help the game move forward. And just in my little bit, you know, of my role. So that's where I am currently in my leadership. But it's communicating and connecting. Once you've connected, you can get a really strong working relationship, collaboration, call it what you will. But unless you connect with people, you've got no chance, I think, because you then become an autocratic leader, and I don't believe in that way of leading.
And I take it that doesn't suit your, you just go back to that effective communication piece. Effective communication, how has that changed from being a coach then to the director of rugby you are now? How has that changed, and what have you had to change in yourself to be the leader you are now?
I think it's a strategic bit that I'm learning. It's more and more understanding the audience that you're trying to get your messages across.
Right.
To, because there's maybe 4 or 5 stakeholders that I've got to engage with within work. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, but it's understanding, where this idea, how it's going to land from a medical point of view, how it's going to land from a science point of view, how it's going to land from a law's perspective, if you like,
right. Not
just from a coaching and playing perspective. So it's learning how to stitch the blanket together, if you like, so people go, oh yeah, that's going to keep me warm. Or I understand what that means. So, and it's a real challenge, mate, for me. And I'm doing it well sometimes, and I'm not doing it so well other times. So that's a real challenge for me. But if you go into a club, director of rugby in this role is still strategic, but in a sort of is different nuances to delivering the strategy. But it's the same in a club. You got to have a strategy for a club. In a club role, you got to know what success looks like, understand where you currently are, and then arguably there's some gaps, and then it's how you fill the gaps to get from A to B to C to D to achieve your goal. Really, it's a bit different, and I'm more versed in that because I've had maybe 28 years of coaching than I've been 2 years in this job.
Right.
But I love the job. I feel so privileged and humble to be in it, and working with these people and chatting to some of the best coaches in the world. We got one in Wales, fortunately. Joe Schmidt, who's just gone from New Zealand to Australia, and Razzie Erasmus. These people, they're brilliant rugby thinkers, and to have an opportunity to pick a forum and be able to speak to those type of people about the game is wonderful, really.
And on that note, I think the challenging bit, it lands really well. What's the biggest challenge you've had up to now? Not just in the role you're in now, but generally across. What's the biggest challenge you've faced?
Again, that's a good question. I come back to communication again. It's that connection piece, understanding the landscape, the culture, if you like, the country. When we went to Namibia, we took I went as a technical advisor first, and then Wayne Proctor and I went, and that role continued, until the summer of June 2015. Then the coach resigned, and we had 7 weeks to get the team prepared. So I went from a technical advisor to director of rugby / head coach.
All overnight?
All overnight. Right. And the fortunate thing I had, I suppose, I had a period there where I could stand back and have a helicopter view of the whole country, the whole thing. What did high performance look like to us didn't necessarily look like to them.
Right.
And their ambitions were maybe extremely ambitious, or their goals, were extremely ambitious, but maybe not realistic. So we had to learn about how they thought, what were the key things that would connect them, and we ended up with family and flag. That's how we got there, and we ended because everybody loves their families and things, and we created a house in Namibia with values. So the discipline was the floor, and attitude and contribute were the walls, and respect was the roof, and that then was transferred into behaviours. And then the flag was the colours of the flag. Like yellow was always sun up, sunrise, not sundown. They're both beautiful in Africa. But we wanted a head up mentality, so we said sunrise, not sundown. Right. Then the blue was the sky on the flag. Blue sky thinking. There's no clouds in the sky in Africa. It's always blue. So, and that was all about innovation, blue sky thinking. Because when you play in Namibia versus New Zealand, you're not going to win, but you want to try and be the biggest pebble in their shoe that they can be for the whole game, so you can compete and you can, give pride to your country and your family and all that. And then green was vegetation, because Africa's so dry, there's not a lot of vegetation about. So it was all that then was translated to unique opportunities when they were all feeling a bit tired, the boys. So look, your mates would give anything to have the opportunities you have.
Yeah.
And then red was the blood spilt on the land by their forefathers to get independence from Namibia.
Right.
So it was Southwest Africa previously. So it was so we said, look, when they were when they were feeling tired and feeling sorry for themselves because they were working too hard, we just say, look at the red on the flag type of thing. That's what it means. So there's all those type of things that meant something to the boys and got us to respect and understand their thinking, and that's how we connected them all. Rugby was easy after that, really. Setting the cones out and talking about moves and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because they were in it then. They were
Hearts and minds.
Hearts and minds. And that's a huge thing. You say, everywhere we did it in Leeds. Because you got to connect to the local mindset. You need to create a team that local people can recognise. You know what I mean? If you're in a working class environment, you can't have a team of prima donnas because it's not going to work. People are going to think, oh, really? They're not going to support that.
Yeah.
So you've got to support their team. The local psyche has got to be represented in the team, if that makes sense. It's a massive, massive thing. And that's where, from my playing days, Gareth was brilliant. John Bevan and Terry Cobden, my first Welsh coaches, to Tony Gray, and Derek, to Alan Davies. John Ryan, God bless him, all those coaches, in their own way, try to, get that across. And you do, you when you play for Wales and you represent, 3.5 million people, you understand what responsibility means and what accountability. When you stand there with that jersey on your, with those feathers on your chest, you realise, it means a lot to a lot of people, and you've got to do your best type of thing,
I love it. The family and flag bit. I'm in awe with that, because that's what was it like then. On that note, I got 2-pronged questions. So one of them is, where does that family and flag sit now with the money that's in the game and the way the game's changed? Has the family and flag piece changed dramatically with regards to people playing for the national country? Do you think that's shifted?
That's a really good question. Look, everybody, is motivated by. I remember talking to a rugby league player once who ended up coaching as well, as a young coach. So he'd been in coaching a couple of years before I started, and he said everybody's got different motivations, Phil. One, nobody's ever going to be the same as you. Nobody's ever going to have the same motivation as you. And again, it comes back to understanding people. Maybe as one motivation they have to perform. Some, it was money because he was looking after their families. Some, maybe teammates never necessarily liked each other. But ultimately, they knew when they put that shirt on, they were all playing, they were all wanting to be successful in their own particular way.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a bit of an ego about them. If you're an international performer or any type of performer in life, you do have a certain level of ego, and it's how you channel that in the correct way in order to get that performance and that buy-in. Everybody wants to do well. Everybody's got pride about them. Everybody's proud of their country, and if you're Welsh, you're proud of Wales, if you're English, it's the same everywhere really, and they don't want to let their teammates down, or they don't want to let their family down. There's some connection in any walk of life that you need to try to bring to the table to connect people. If because you're putting a red shirt on, it doesn't mean you're in a team, by the way. It's the same if you're putting a blue and black shirt or a red. It doesn't matter, whatever you are. If you put it on and you can't create a connection, you're just a team of 15 blokes with the same colour shirt on.
So what team have you ever played in all through your career that had that brought everyone together? And what was it about that team then, the traits that really connected it?
Yeah, all my Llanelli career from the start, when I went there as a kid with Phil May and Lawrence Delaney and Gary Pierce, all of those guys, the older guys at the time. Same with the village, it was blue and green and black with 7. Same thing. It was all through behaviours. where like blokes, like they love doing things together, don't we? Like the girls will sit down and talk, and they'll connect in that particular way. But we don't like talking much as men, do we? Really, sometimes we don't. There's a lot of that going on now about about
starting to, isn't it?
About opening and being a bit more honest with your feelings as men. But we like to just get stuck in, do we? Like to do things together. We like to go out and have a few beers, or we'll have a boat race, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We like to do things, go walking up mountains like Dan and you guys do, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We like to do things together, and that's one of the things that we try to do. When with Llanelli, with Gareth, there'd be nights out, or there'd be chores, or there'd be we do a lot of stuff together, basically. You can training sessions, obviously, drinking, whatever it might have been, we did a lot together. And we were the same in Leeds. We used to try to do things together. We used to run up hills. No other team were doing that at times. I used to have to taxi to the top of the hill, right? It was a steep old hill. But we used to do things. We used to go up into the dales with maps, and we used to go orienteering with the boys, and we'd end up in a pub, and we'd have a sing-song, and we'd have food, but we used to do things, and that's what teams, particularly men's teams, like to do, And somebody said, and that's like men need to play well to feel good, whereas women like to feel good to play well. As Wayne Smith's quote, that was when he coached the Black Ferns a couple of years ago in the World Cup, and obviously he's coaching All Blacks. He's a coaching legend, Wayne. I love that. I love that sort of analogy he brought to it, and when you think about it, that's all the best experiences I've had are doing things with my mates. Whether it's on the rugby field, whether it's off the rugby field, and all those things that connected us. And we did in Llanelli, we played in 7 cup finals, which was unbelievably, it's incredible, really. And we won 5 of them, and we lost 2 to a great Neath team, to a great Cardiff team, in Derwin and Hawley and all them were playing with Cardiff, and when
Nigel was there,
Nigel was playing, Nigel Walker, and then when Neath with Kevin Phillips and Mark Jones and all, Phil Pugh and all those guys, so it was amazing. We played touring teams at Stradi. We beat Australia one year. We won the merit table, won the Heineken League as it was in the first year, scoring 70 odd tries, playing a Scarlet brand of rugby. Karen James would have been really proud of type of thing, So it's all that stuff, mate, really, and playing for Wales, the 86 tour to the South Seas, as the boys were mentioning the other day, was flipping heck. That was like going to another universe. It was tough. And that, I think, led us to become third, give us the third in the first World Cup, give the Triple Crown in 1988. I think our connection of being together, backs against the wall, 15, 30 man brawls, whatever you want to call it, and nights out and crazy things, you do as young kids, but not, apart from getting the punch-ups on the pitch, not harming anybody, but just having fun. And being in as a 22-year-old, being in Australia and New Zealand for 8 weeks was an amazing experience.
I bet.
So the side of the world, and it's just, so it's like doing things together, which creates that camaraderie, and you do that in many ways. Sometimes it's on the field through adversity, other times it's in the training sessions with Gareth or Peter Herbert getting you run 12 200s on a running track in Carmarthen when it's belting down with rain, about 8 or 9 of you.
But those sessions make you what you are, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And it's that's why everybody talks fondly about the Lions so much, because it's the experience of coming together and finding ways how you can quickly, build and bond as a team, and I love listening to Geach, and I love listening to Gatz's stories about the Lions, and it's just, it's brilliant. It's the same. And when people do it well, they succeed. And when they don't do it well, I still can't get my head around soccer, how they change so often.
Coaches?
Yeah, managers because as Gareth always said, I believe this, it takes you 3 years to build a team and 5 years to win. So, and I've always believed that, and my Leeds experience taught me that. We took 5 years to build, and then we took another 5 years to progress, continue building and win.
And they backed you, right?
Yeah, and that's the important thing, is getting a cloud. We used to have some amazing conversations, the chairman and the chief exec in Leeds, particularly excitable around a snooker table when there was snooker cues involved, but it was just
But at least you found a place where it was right for all of you to have a chat, right?
Yeah, it was, and it was. Yeah, we disagree a lot in private, but publicly we'd always have one storyline, you know, and we never, you know, we tried to always, you know, be as honest as we could from a coaching point of view, from a leading point of view, with players, with staff, whatever. We try to be as honest as possible. I'm not saying we were perfect at it, because I know we weren't, but we'd always try and be realistic and not sort of overpromise and underdeliver. We tried to always, you know, deliver what we said we could do or we would do, you know. And I'm not saying we were perfect doing it, because I know we weren't, but
yeah.
I'd be hand on heart to think we got it right. Maybe more times we got it wrong, but some other people may disagree. But anyway, but we always, you know, a lot of people, when I speak to players now about their Leeds experience, they always say it's one of the best times of my career, Phil. Yeah. One or two will think maybe it was their worst time, but that's how it is.
That's how it was. Couple of questions there. I got two left in my head. What sort of behaviours, to be in Phil's world, what sort of behaviours have I got to, if I was in part of your team, what behaviours have I got to show or deliver to be part of Phil's team?
Yeah, I think Ronnie Reagan said this once, said leave your ego at the gate. When we used to come in the Headingley, and that was one of the things, really, because I know we can all, myself included, we can all be accused of having inflated egos at times, but I think that's important, that everything with your ego, it's all in a context that helps the team. I think, you know, respect for each other is important. There's no rocket science with it, John, really. It is just work ethic and team spirit, really, and discipline. And then what does that all look like? Like, punctuality is discipline for me, you know. Like in Africa, it was amazing. Boys would turn up 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes late, and there was no malice in them at all, you know. And I used to think about it, wow. And I remember Heineken Meyer, the Springbok coach, said, Phil, have you worked on African time yet? Because they're all laid back there, right? Unbelievable. I said, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So we ended up saying that, you know, 1 minute late was all right in the end. That's where we got to.
Right.
We never got to 10 minutes early. No chance. Or like Lombardi time, as Clive Woodward would say, you know. Yeah. No chance. But that was, again, getting to know the boys, know the culture and respect it, and they were brilliant. The boy, I love, honestly,
But it was hard to leave there, was it?
It was one of the best. Again, in coaching, one of the best experience I've had in my life. Me and Proc, it was just so fulfilling, because you see people with next to nothing, but they're always smiling. I'm just talking about Africa generally, because you know, when you go to Zimbabwe and Uganda and Kenya and places, Tunisia, maybe not so much, but Morocco, maybe not so much, but you go to those other places and it's a different world, mate. And you know, we don't go to the touristy bits when you're playing rugby. You go to the you know, the real bits of Africa, and it was incredible, and I have so much respect for them.
And it knocks socks off the plane for Seven Sisters up the valleys, then, doesn't it?
Oh no, well, it's a similar thing.
There's some places up there.
It's a bit colder.
It is, yeah,
it's just a bit colder, but it's all those things really. But I feel amazing. It's just team ethic, you know, work ethic, team spirit, and respect for, you know, your teammates, and respect for, you know, where you are, respect for the jersey, all that stuff. It's all complicated, and every time you get that right, I think you can achieve, you know.
So what, bro, Nate, honestly, it's been brilliant. What's next then for you? What's the short term, what does it look like for you for the foreseeable? What's next?
It's just, you know, I'm involved in this job with World Rugby now as director of rugby, and I know I work in a department. I got a brilliant boss, Mark Harrington. He's great, and he you know, really encourages all of us, really, not just me, but, you know, we're in the player welfare and rugby services department. That's where my role sits, and it's all about player welfare. We got a lot on a concussion at the minute, and the research we're doing and the amount of money we're putting into research to try and make a game safer is incredible. I'm working with some people, I don't understand what they say sometimes, because they're so knee deep in the research, the medical research, the sports science and things. It's just incredible. And it frustrates me sometimes that people maybe don't know enough about what World Rugby actually does in that space. You get a lot of lobbying groups, and I respect them, and they do it for a reason.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work going on, and could you do more? I'm sure you could, but I don't think we could do any less than we're doing. It's incredible. So,
because people take for granted what all they see is what they see, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the nice things for me is we're doing a bit of research with Cardiff Met University on the instrumented mouth guards, which can give readings on the type of ferocity of the G forces of people get tackled with, or a tackling and carrying a ball and that sort of stuff. And it's great to be able to do something locally with some great people up there who I've worked with and known for 20 odd years, and it's not far from
a mile and a half away, right?
Mile and a half away now. So that's great. It's just we're having opportunities with the laws to shape, to try to have conversations with some great coaches at club and international level, and you got Bill, who's chairman now, and then obviously there'll be a new chairman potentially coming in again, and all just some great colleagues to try to move the game forward from a safety and a spectacle point of view. Try and make it as entertaining as possible, and trying to make it as safe as possible, and that's what I find exciting and humbling about the work. Really, it's not coaching on the pitch per se anymore. It's a different role. It's more strategic, right? Like I said earlier, that I'm trying to learn the whys, the whats, and the hows to present different things, and to take on new knowledge and be able to present my experiential knowledge out there and help the game. So I'm just lucky I'm involved with a great organisation with an intention of trying to take the game forward, really, and using 30 odd years of experience and connections to help do that. And I just love talking to people about it. And some great rugby people, and the game gets a lot of stick, I know, but you know what, I think we're as innovative and as intentional to improve as any professional team sport, I think. And I think sometimes that's where people need to sort of give the game a break on occasions.
And legacy for you, just on that note, is legacy important?
I listen to loads of people answer this question, and I think it's important, the fact that you want to have sort of help people along the way, if you like, is like, I'm very proud of my family. That's a big thing for me. My connection with Llanelli, my connection with all the places I've been around the world, really is you just leave a little bit, I suppose, in some ways. But for me, I've been so lucky to have so many good people that have helped. And I'd like to think that you do a little bit of that along the way yourself. And and as I said before, try and be better, than for the next experience than you were from the that you've learned from the last, if that makes any sense, I think.
It does, mate. It does.
Yeah, so that's a key thing. I was going to get a bit philosophically deep there, but
good.
It's how you my daughters as well. I'm proud of them. There, my wife as well. They're our legacy, really. I think our kids and our granddaughter and things, that sort of stuff, really, I suppose. And that's the main thing.
So,
good question.
So there's obviously a lot of times in your career you've had to manage up as well as manage down and influence. There's gonna be a lot of people out there that are in that same position where they've got boards and boardrooms that they've got to influence. How have you managed to do that in your time?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I think there have been periods, right, where I've done it really well, and other periods I've been very bad. Not bad, poor. And I think what I learned along the way, when my first coaching job in Leeds, it was very simple with Paul and Gary, because they said, look, from a budget point of view, taking a budget as an example, that's the budget you've got, work around it, make it work, and that's how I was sort of starting my coaching. I was brought up on it, and so they give me clear guidelines. So I'm obviously creating my own. They put the name to the album, if you like, right? But I'm sort of creating my own songs within that album.
Right.
But there's a method behind it in a way. There's a reason why the title is what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was always we always were able to connect because I understood the language, if you like, and I was able to go back with similar, words, thoughts, because they give me a bit of direction.
Yeah.
And then in other parts, I didn't have that. Well, I said, just tell us how much you want then. So then you think, right, okay, fine. So you go along there and you present. They say, well, what do you want? Well, this is what I want, and this is what it's going to cost. And then you start going back and forth. You can't have that because you can't have that because. So the thing I've learned a lot, and I remember doing stuff with Academy Wales, they were called, the Welsh Government, right, with a lady called Bethan Johnson. She's brilliant. She lives in Cardiff. Right. And Joe Hicks, the name of the lady, she was the leader of it. So I did like a political questionnaire, right, which was really interesting. Did it teach me a lot? It did, in a way, in terms of structure and asking questions. If you're in a political environment, then there is always some form of politics in any type of environment. But it was questions, how to question well, and make sure that when you're asking the questions, you're getting the information back that you need to form a picture in your mind of how you could present certain things that were going to land. And I do it well at times now, and I still do it not so well because I need to. I sometimes I overthink and I got too much detail, which means I procrastinate a bit, and sometimes time catches up with me. So what I've learned basically is good questioning and listening to the people that you're working with, but particularly working for. And you get that sort of conversation going, so you understand where the landscapes are, and we might need to think about that, or we might need to think about this, and sometimes you haven't even thought about it because it's their political or their bias, if you like, of how it all fits together.
And by putting it together then in that way, you're more likely to get it through.
You're more likely to get it through, and you're more likely to cover the bits that people want to hear. Yeah. Because you'll see some people, right, on boards, they want the high level stuff. They want to be inspired. They want to, I want to be part of this. I want to be seen to be in the middle of all of this because I love it. They're not necessarily too worried about the detail in some of the milestones or the steps that you need to achieve to get there. They just want to be there, and they want to be on the journey. They want to be along there. Oh yeah, we've hit that milestone. Great, thank you. I've had a part in that. And you get other people then, like if they're accountants or financial directors, where they need more detail. So you're finding, and unless you have those conversations that I find, you can't find the balance. So it's a bit of critical thinking at the beginning of, like I said earlier, about the why, the what, and the how that you need to articulate in order to get, through the barriers, if you like, that you need to get to, and then you've got to read, all right, what's the level of detail, what's the high level stuff, what needs to be strategic, what needs to be maybe inspirational or aspirational, then inspirational. Because a strategy for me is all about aspiration, and then how you find the key steps, to inspire people to get there. And then there are what I've learned, different levels of detail to get things across the line. I wish I'd known some certain stuff when I was working at the Blues with Peter, and we presented something once, and they were all blown away by it, by the structure of it all. But then as the journey was unfolding, maybe I didn't take the board on that step-by-step process often enough to get where we wanted to get to. So it's about setting our plan, and then it's taking them on a journey. With you, like we did in Namibia with selection. Selection is always the biggest emotive subject in sport. Yeah. Well, in rugby, that is, in sport as well. So we came up with a clear criteria. So we took 80% of subjectivity out of it.
So emotions to one side.
Emotions to one side. And we still had a bit of subjectivity, of course. Yeah, of course. But we would say we wanted to be, physically look like this. Just be your best you can be. Yeah. Be skillful. So we put programs in place for that to achieve. And then with the board, then once they knew what the criteria was, we said, look, these guys are still at home. these guys are on the bus to the airport, these guys are on the plane.
Right.
And we use a traffic light system like red, amber, green. So we took them on the journey. So when the final selection came, we had questions, of course. But they felt, you know what, great. It's like now we're picking certain referees, why? We're picking certain management positions, why? And you articulate why, and they either agree with it or they ask you more questions, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
So it's just it's that context piece, if that makes sense, of where you're trying to go, how you're going to get there, and then how you articulate the information along the way, so people feel they're invested and they're bought into it, and it's good questioning, and it's a lot of listening as well, and seeing
how to navigate it.
How to navigate it all. If that answers a question, it's...
Does, mate. Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, brilliant. Good, mate. Right, I end the podcast with the same question. If you were going back to see an 18-year-old Phil, what bit of advice would you give him and why?
Calm down, son. I think calm down, yeah. I think as a bloke I got to know quite well, Graham Wilson his name is, he calls himself a leadership wizard. He's from Chester, a great bloke, right. Brilliant bloke. And he used to say sometimes, you can speed up by slowing down. And I wish I'd known Graham when I was about maybe 16, 17. But yeah, that's what I think. Calm down, slow down a bit. It'll all work out in the end, and I think it always does, isn't it? I think whatever you do in life, it is never going to go on a straight line, but it's how you react to the bumps and bruises, or when you're surfing different waves. So just ride the waves a bit better, really. But I don't think I'd have ended up where I am now if I hadn't have had some of the punches. I don't know if I could say that anymore, but some of the bumps I've had, I don't know if I'd have ended up where I am now if I hadn't had them, and I just hope I haven't disrupted too many people or situations along the way. But no, I think you've got to. It's how you learn from it. That's the key. I'm proud of the fact that I've been a pretty good learner. I think I'm very much an experiential and reflective type of learner, and I think and I can thank people like maybe Kevin Bowring, and there's another Cardiff boy, Andy McCann, maybe somebody I've come across over my time. I think those two guys, as well as my wife and my mother-in-law in particular, who've and my brother-in-law sometimes, who've helped, So just learn and crack on, as you say.
Mate, we'll end it on the crack on, won't it?
Exactly.
Hey, I really appreciate your time, mate. And honestly, fantastic. That family and flag will stay with me. And the way you described that was beautiful, mate. So thank you ever so much for your time.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. Nice one, mate.
Nice one.
Nice.